Which Oklahoma Sooner is ESPN most excited to see in 2025?
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Thank you for tuning in and subscribing to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins over at FanDuel. Got a great show for you today. We're going to show a little love. It's Valentine's Day, so we'll discuss who are some of the people in Oklahoma athletics that we need to be showing the love to as we enter the weekend. We're also going to talk about CBS Sports grading the year 3 coaches, including Brent Venables, Dan Lanning, Marcus Freeman, but obviously we'll focus more on what they had to say about Brent Venables. But first, we're going to start with this. ESPN talked about the storylines they're most excited for in 2025, including newcomer to watch. And I think this is going to be everybody's newcomer to watch, the person that most people are most excited for, and that's John Mateer. David Hale of ESPN, he chose John Mateer as the newcomer to watch. For him, is who are you most excited to watch? Would love to hear your thoughts on social media, in the YouTube comments. Drop it there. But let's look at what David Hale had to say about John Mateer. He says, there's a strong argument that the most fun player in college football last season was Mateer. At Washington State, Mateer was a swashbuckling showman of a quarterback, throwing for 29 touchdowns, rushing for 15 more, and racking up just shy of 4,000 yards of total offense. Even if his supporting cast was lackluster, Mateer ensured the Cougars were frisky in every game. Now he arrives at Oklahoma, along with his OC, Ben Arbuckle, from Washington State, ready to make an impact on the SEC. Hale continues to write, the Sooners are in do or die mode, which suits Mateer, who has a knack for playing that way all the time anyway. It's getting ahead of ourselves to make big comparisons such as, say, Johnny Manziel, but from a style of play standpoint, Mateer ought to be one of the most entertaining quarterbacks to come through the SEC in a while. Now those are lofty thoughts from David Hale, that he could be one of the most entertaining quarterbacks to come to the SEC in a while, when we've had the likes of Joe Burrow. I mean, yeah, maybe that was 5 years ago, but Joe Burrow, Diego Pavia in 2024 was very entertaining. I mean, this is a really entertaining conference when it comes to quarterbacks, but if John Mateer can go and live up to the expectations, he could put up another big season for the Sooners and have them in playoff contention. Again, I've talked about it on multiple times this week that it's not all going to come down to John Mateer. The offensive line has to step up and be much better than what they were in 2024. I've also said that I think they've got the competitive depth to create a better offensive line than what they had in 2024. But for John Mateer, the dude's got the intangibles. He's got the ability. A lot of people are likening him to a Baker Mayfield. I can see the comps. A Johnny Manziel, that's a different one, because I think Mateer is a little bit bigger than what Manziel was. He runs a little bit more physical than what Manziel did. But if he can go and he can kind of put on that type of performance for the Sooners, they'll be in playoff contention when November rolls around. And I know that John Mateer is one of those guys that everybody's looking to see how he's going to fit in at Oklahoma, how he's going to fit in at the SEC level. But he's got the tools, man. He's got the tools to be very productive in Ben Arbuckle's offense, even though they're all making the jump to the SEC. Again, a lot of it's going to come down to the offensive line, but I'm excited for it, man. I'm excited to see what his dual threat ability is going to be able to do, what his experience is going to help him do at the University of Oklahoma, because that experience does matter. Even if it's against lower competition, that's a lot of snaps that the dude's played at the collegiate level now, and he had a lot of success doing it. Was it perfect? No, not by any stretch of the imagination, but you see all the time where transfer portal quarterbacks go, and a lot of times maybe that first stop, it wasn't smooth sailing, but the next stop, they go and have a lot of success. Jalen Hurts is one of those guys, right? At Alabama, with a lot of weapons around him, it was just kind of okay, right? He ended up getting benched for Tua Tagovailoa, comes to Oklahoma under Lincoln Riley, is incredible. Has a Heisman type of season, if not for Joe Burrow's incredible 2019. I mean, Jalen Hurts could have won the Heisman if it was any other year because the dude was that dynamic for Oklahoma. You saw it with Will Howard this year, going from Kansas State to Ohio State. You saw it with Dylan Gabriel making the jump from UCF to Oklahoma. You saw it with Diego Pavia, who I just mentioned, going from New Mexico State to Vanderbilt. So the fact that he's jumping competition doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to struggle. It doesn't mean that he's going to do great. We see a lot of times where players make that jump and it's not smooth sailing, but you like the foundation that you've got with John Mateer and the potential that is there. It's enough to get me excited. And listen, I know I'm the guy that gets excited, and you can call me a sunshine pumper if you want. I'm an optimist, that's for sure. But I just like the way the guy plays the game. And that's going to be what's fun about who John Mateer is in 2025. Will it lead to more wins? Hopefully. I'm still in this y'all got to prove it to me mentality. I think there's potential for them to get to 9 or 10 wins, but we'll see, right? It's going to be a tough season with a tough schedule, and you're breaking in a lot of new faces, especially at the skill positions with a new quarterback. So that's going to be fascinating. Defensively, if I'm looking at one player that I'm most excited to watch in 2025, if it's a newcomer, man, Kendall Daniels. That guy, I think, has the potential to be as impactful of a transfer portal addition as Oklahoma made this year. Now you look at that and you think, okay, why would that be the case? Because you're seeing too deep projections and he's not a starter. Well, he could be a starter at Cheetah to open the season. A lot of it's going to depend on where Kendall Dolby's at, what his health situation is going into fall camp. But if you have a healthy offseason from Kendall Daniels, he could very easily be your starter at Cheetah, or at least in a significant rotation with Samuel Omasigo. But you could also bump Samuel Omasigo over to a linebacker spot and play Kendall Daniels at Cheetah. So it's going to be fascinating to see there. I mean, I'm excited to see what David Stone does with another year, another offseason in the Schmitty strength and conditioning program with Todd Bates as a developing defensive tackles coach. I'm excited about that dude. Now he's not a newcomer, but he's one of the guys on the roster for 2025 that I'm most excited to watch. If you're going to look at other offensive players, I mean, Isaiah Satania, I think we're kind of sleeping on him a little bit. He may not start for your offense, but he definitely adds a dynamic ability in your return game. If you can get something out of your return game, a good return here, a solid kickoff return there. If you can get a touchdown, I mean, how much of a difference could that make for your special teams unit if you can actually have a dynamic return game? You haven't had that in several years. And if you want to win in the SEC, you've got to be good in all three phases. If you want to be a college football playoff contender, a national title contender, you've got to be good in all three phases. And for several years now, Oklahoma has just been lackluster in the return game. So Isaiah Satania, that's another newcomer that I'm excited to watch. I think you could point to a lot of guys. Who are some of the players that you're most excited to see, either transfer portal additions or younger players that are in their first or second year with Oklahoma that you think could make an impact in 2025? Let us know in the YouTube comment section. Would love to hear your responses and interact with you there. I think Oklahoma's got a lot of potential on this roster. Now you got to see that potential take the next step. But John Mateer, I mean, as John Mateer goes, so will Oklahoma. I mean, you got to have your offensive line get better. But if John Mateer can be the guy that he was for Washington State, it's going to make them a very, very competitive team. And I think it's going to give them an opportunity to win a lot more games in 2025. CBS Sports graded third-year coaches at their new stops. How did Brent Venables grade out according to CBS Sports? We'll discuss coming up next here on Locked On Sooners. And today's episode is brought to you by Factor. Are you looking to optimize your nutrition this year? Factor makes eating well easy with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved meals that are fresh, never frozen, and ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes. With 40 options across 8 dietary preferences every week, you can customize your meals to fit your lifestyle. Whether it's Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto, plus Factor even offers wholesome smoothies, breakfasts, and grab-and-go snacks to keep you fueled all day long. I love how Factor takes the stress out of meal planning, especially as the kids get going in their extracurricular activities. Soccer's about to get going. Factor makes it so much simpler to get our meals prepped throughout the week. The convenience is unbeatable. No prep, no mess, just great food in minutes. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/lockedoncollege50 off and use code lockedoncollege50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code lockedoncollege50 off at factormeals.com/lockedoncollege50 off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box over at Factor. Again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast. CBS Sports Chip Patterson graded third-year coaches, and Brent Venables ended up with a C. How do we feel about that? A C, I mean, that's passing. But I think if you're looking at a what have you done for me lately style of grading system, maybe that's a little bit rich for Brent Venables. Now, I know a lot of what happened in 2024. I mean, it's not entirely on him. Injuries. I know you guys don't want to hear it. Injuries played a part in what happened at Oklahoma this last season. Could injuries have been avoided? Maybe. It's hard to know. But you know that played a role. And you can't tell the story of the 6 and 7 season without talking about the injuries. And I know nobody wants to hear that. I get it. And I'm sorry for bringing it back up. But Brent Venables with a C grade, if you're looking to split the offense and the defense, I mean, the offensive hires of Seth Luttrell did not work. Promoting Joe John Finley, I mean, it's what you had to do at the time. Hiring Ben Arbuckle, a good hire. Hiring Jeff Lebby, aside from the off-the-field stuff with Art Briles, he was a productive hire offensively. Maybe not a productive hire from a PR standpoint. In 3 seasons, we don't know what Brent Venables is as a head coach. He's shown a lot of good. He's shown a lot of inexperience. He's shown kind of a roller coaster ride as a head coach. We've seen him develop a defense. The defense continues to get better and better and better each season, right? But we've just not seen consistent growth from the offense. It's been 1 step forward, 2 steps back. And I mean, Jeff Lebby was pretty solid in 2022. You had the Dylan Gabriel injury, the concussion against TCU. He misses the Texas game. That certainly plays a role in how that offense looks from a statistical standpoint. 2023 took a big step forward, right? 2024 took a big step back, giant step back. And it wasn't all injuries. Seth Luttrell couldn't adjust to the personnel that he had available to him for whatever reason. I don't know what it was, but my guy just had a hard time creating an offense that worked well for what he had. Credit to Joe John Finley for the Alabama game. He came up with an offensive game plan that worked. It just so happened that Alabama's offense couldn't do anything against Oklahoma's defense. How that might have looked were at a tighter game, I don't know. But you didn't have to ask Jackson Arnold to throw it a lot. So credit to Joe John Finley for coming up with a game plan and the defense for allowing Oklahoma to execute that game plan offensively. But, I mean, offense was a train wreck last year due to injuries, due to inexperience, and due to talent. You just didn't have enough talent when everybody was out. And that's got to be much, much better. But Brent Venables at a C feels about right. I could totally get why some of you might want to grade him as an F or grade him as a D for 3 years. Totally would get that. You haven't made the playoff. You haven't reached a conference title game. You've played in, mid-tier bowls or lower tier bowls, and you're 0-3 in those bowl games. You lost to Navy. Not good. I mean, I can totally understand why you might view his tenure so far as a D or an F. This is not up to expectations at the University of Oklahoma, And that's why 2025 is a make or break season. But let's take a look at what Chip Patterson had to say real quick about Brent Venables. He said, while Oklahoma has been to 3 straight bowl games with Venables, they are not the games that the Sooners are used to playing in. And the results have produced a pair of 6-7 finishes in his 3 years. He's navigated the move to the SEC and significant turnover on the coaching staff, but enters 2025 under immense pressure because a 12-14 record against conference opponents is not the standard in Norman. Yeah, he's certainly been buoyed by his non-conference record. And he's suffered some upset losses. The Kansas game, the Oklahoma State game back in 2023, those were huge games that knocked them out of playoff contention. This past year, you needed big turnovers against Auburn, against Alabama to give you those wins. But Ole Miss, you struggled in the second half. LSU, same thing. You struggled in the second half. Texas, you had no answer for Texas. And if you want to just look at the performances against Texas, 2 out of the 3 seasons, Oklahoma's been held to 3 points total. That's terrible. Absolutely terrible. No excuses for that. You cannot be that way. You lost your last Bedlam game in 2023. Can't happen. So against your biggest rivals, and we're not going to call Mizzou a rival, but that's a team that recruits similar areas as you do, especially in the Midwest. You lost to them. So if you're looking at the 3 teams that you have the most historical significance against in Texas, Oklahoma State, and Missouri, you're just 1-5 in those games. I guess he did beat Oklahoma State back in 2022. So he's 2-5 in those games, 2-4 in those games. That's not going to cut it. My man's got to be better. I like Brent Venables. I think he's a good dude. I think he's a really, really good defensive coordinator. I think he's got a great vision for the program. The culture that he's creating in Oklahoma football, I think it's something that everybody can be proud of, right? At the same time, culture doesn't win football games. Being a good dude doesn't win football games. Having a great vision doesn't win football games. Being a great defensive coordinator isn't going to be enough to win football games. You got to create a holistic program like he's aiming for, and that has to be an offense that year over year can be good. It can't have 1 year it's great. Now we're turning over our offensive coordinator position, so now we're going to have a down year. We got to figure out a way to maintain stability year after year after year and create good offense year after year after year. And that's the charge for Brent Venables. And if he's not able to do that, if 2025 is a 7-5 season in the regular season, he could very well be out the door. Even if everything performs well, if he's not putting Oklahoma in a position to contend for the playoffs come November, again, I think they got to be 8-1 going into November. With those 3 games against Alabama, Mizzou, and LSU, you've got to be in a good position. The strength of schedule looks tough right now because a lot of those teams are ranked, but there's a good chance that some of those teams or half those teams that Oklahoma faces that are ranked aren't by the end of the 2025 season because there's so much quarterback turnover that's happening. And as much as I like Brent Venables and as much as I think he can be successful at Oklahoma, the proof's going to be in the pudding, man. You got to show it. You got to show your work. And if he's not able to put Oklahoma into playoff contention, 9-3, to me, 9-3 is like the bare minimum of what Oklahoma can be this season. And I really feel like they got to make the playoffs this year for him to remove himself from the hot seat and cool the embers that are fueling the fire of that hot seat. Success is all it's going to take. But success is going to come a little bit more difficult than what maybe we think it will. It's Valentine's Day, so we're going to show the love to a few people coming up next here on Locked On Sooners. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three, I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thanks again for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. We're going to show a little love on Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day to all of you. Happy Valentine's Day to my wife, who is the biggest supporter. Could not be doing this without her. This is not my only job. I'm a nurse full time. This is what I do because I love to do it. But she has been supporting me throughout the way, encouraging me. So shout out to you, Audra. So thankful for who you are, just the woman of God that you are, the way that you lead our kids and teach our kids and raise them up, and just the way you take care of our family. You are just the most special person. And my words aren't going to be enough to truly describe how much you mean to me. We've been married now for 14 years, going on 15, but we've been together for 18 years and just loving every minute of it. So thankful, so thankful for you, Audra. Hope you're having a wonderful day while I'm at work. Getting a little peace and quiet, I hope, while the kids are in school. We're also going to show a little love to some Oklahoma figures. We'll just say that. Jalen Hurts, man, got to start with my man, Jalen Hurts. What a game he played for the Philadelphia Eagles. He was just efficient. He was effective. He had perfect timing, when to scramble, picked his spots really, really well, ended up with over 70 rushing yards in the game. And was just the dude, right? He was that dude in that playoff game or in the Super Bowl. And as much as it pains me to say, as a Dallas Cowboys fan, and somebody who hates to see the Eagles have success, it was so enjoyable to see Jalen Hurts go win a Super Bowl. You couldn't have asked for it to happen to a better dude. He is just one of those guys, kind of like Baker Mayfield, right? That is just a good dude and somebody that you really can't root against because of the work that he puts in, the way he goes about his business, the way he treats people. And just his story, just going from being benched at Alabama to being a Super Bowl winner. It's one of those stories that ESPN will one day make a 30 for 30 documentary on, and it's going to be phenomenal to see because it wasn't long ago before people were trying to run him out of Philly or people were basically saying he couldn't be a franchise quarterback. But this is what happens when you silence the doubters, or you at least keep them out of your mind and you keep them out of the forefront of your mentality. That you just keep working, keep grinding, keep doing what you know to do. You silence and shut out the noise, and you can go be successful. So shout out to Jalen Hurts. Happy Valentine's Day to you. We're going to show you the love here on Locked On Sooners. A couple other people, and this we're going to turn to Oklahoma softball for this one because Patty Gasso got named the head coach for USA softball for the next 4 years, and so fitting, right? Someone who's won 8 national titles, won 4 in a row, has been the biggest proponent of the growth of softball over the last, decade. And you've seen the growth of softball. And as much as it is due to Oklahoma's success, it's also due to the fact that Patty Gasso is just a fan of the sport and wants to see the sport grow everywhere. There's no clearer evidence of that than Oklahoma going on a 6-game road trip to start the season over 4 days in Southern California, simply so those local venues at San Diego State and Cal State Fullerton and Long Beach State can get the opportunity to sell out their building, sell out their stadium, and earn that revenue. it's a great opportunity for Oklahoma to get some challenging opponents. They played several teams that are going to be NCAA tournament teams, but also she's showing the love. She's trying to create an opportunity for everybody to make a little bit of a payday. And I think that's good for the sport. It's good for the growth of the sport. She even acknowledged the role that NIL is playing in the sport and creating a bigger divide between the haves and the have-nots. And so she's trying to create a little bit of competitive balance. And listen, it also benefits her because her team gets to go play some games on the road. They get tested a little bit. They've got to lock in for 4 days and make sure they're on, because they almost got upset a couple of times. But it's just cool. And so shout out Patty Gasso. Congratulations to her on getting that USA softball head coaching gig, and also just for the continued success and how much she means to the sport of college softball. And sticking with softball, going to go Ella Parker. The girl was on fire on opening weekend, earned SEC Player of the Week. It's Oklahoma's first SEC Player of the Week honor for softball. But let's just listen to her numbers for the first 6 games. Okay. She went 13 for 22. That's a 591 batting average. 591 batting average. She also had 5 walks. So she reached base 18 times in 6 games. No, 19 times in 6 games, because she was also hit by a pitch. So she reached base 19 times in 6 games. That's insane. She slugged .955. She had a .679 on base percentage. Oh, and she stole 3 bases. Okay, Ella Parker, we see you. We see you, Ella Parker. You're doing everything. She had 5 doubles, a home run, 8 RBIs, 13 hits over the 6 games. This woman, Ella Parker, is going to be another one of these long line of Sooner greats that we've seen over the last 2 decades. She's going to end her career in the same echelon of player as a Tiare Jennings, in the same echelon of player as a Jada Coleman. Well, she probably isn't going to have the power numbers of Jocelyn Alo, because I don't know if anybody will ever have the power numbers of Jocelyn Alo. Jocelyn Alo is like 1 of 1, right? But Ella Parker has a chance to be in that same tier of player as Tiare, as Jada. If you're looking at Jocelyn as like tier 1, I think Ella has a chance to be in tier 2 with a great number of Oklahoma legends that we've seen. And man, she's already off to the races and on a tear to this season. And you're going to need her to be, because you lost a lot of talent last year. You're bringing in some good transfer portal talent. But if Ella Parker can be what she was on opening weekend, Oklahoma's going to win a lot of games this year. Will they win it all? Will they go on a 5-peat and win the national championship once again? We'll see. It's going to be a tough climb. It's hard to make that climb once, let alone 4 times. To do it a 5th would be, crazy. But at this point, I'm done doubting what they're capable of. I'm not going to sit here and say they can't do it, because they very well could. You got the best coaching staff in college softball. You've got one of the best hitters in college softball in Ella Parker. You got another great one in Cassidy Pickering, who leads Oklahoma with 2 home runs and 9 RBIs. You added some really good transfer portal talent in Abby Dayton, who's already showing her worth both at the plate and in the outfield. Isabella Emmerling is showing off the power stroke. You've got some really encouraging signs from your pitching staff over those first 6 games. So there's a lot to really love about where Oklahoma's headed. It's going to be a tough road. Every year it's going to be tough because everybody's gunning for Oklahoma. Lastly, let's show a little love to DeMarco Murray, who's going to be sticking around Oklahoma for at least 1 more year. He keeps getting overtures from Big Ten schools like Ohio State and Penn State, but he's sticking around. And why is that important? Well, listen, the guy is a good recruiter. For whatever your complaints are about his running back rotations or the development that's happened at Oklahoma, the dude's a good recruiter. He gets talent to Oklahoma. I think we can all agree that Javante Barnes, Gavin Sawchuk are talented players. Xavier Robinson is a talented player. Taylor Tatum, fumbles aside, is a talented player. It's just a matter of getting those guys to reach their full potential. We saw it with a guy like Kennedy Brooks. We saw it with a guy like Ramondre Stevenson. We saw Eric Gray really take off under DeMarco Murray's tutelage. So if we can see this group that he's got now take a step, it's going to help Oklahoma's offense. It's going to help their run game. And again, a lot of what happened in 2024 for the running backs isn't all on the running backs. Now, Taylor Tatum fumbling, that's an issue. Guys not seeing the hole properly, that's an issue. But your offensive line is going to be better this year, so the run game should be better this year. And that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in, being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Follow the show on social media at Locked On Sooners, wherever you like to do your social media stuff. Follow Jay at Unfair Sports. You can go check out his channel, Unfair Sports, over on YouTube, and show him a little encouragement on the social medias. Just send him a little note. Let him know that you're thinking about him. He's just been sick all week. He'll be okay. He's going to get better. But, man, he's just really been fighting the bugs. So just send a little shout out to Jay. Let him know you're thinking of him. We miss him on the show. Obviously, this last couple of weeks has been a little bit weird here on Locked On Sooners, but we appreciate you all being around and coming back with your encouraging words for us whenever we do get back together. So hopefully next week we'll have a full slate of shows where both of us back together again, and we can bring you the stuff that you love from us here on Locked On Sooners. But until next time, I'm John Williams. Can't wait to talk to you then. Boomer Sooner.